Oh.
When we're live, yeah. Hey. Welcome, welcome. Okay, today we're going to talk about meditation for children and in all aspects of its entity. If that makes any sense. Anyway, as a global staff, so that does include the parents, because before we can get the child to meditate, he has to see what the parents are doing generally. Brittany has some wonderful stuff she'd like to share as well. I won't say anything about that. Sorry. Suffice to say that we can both talk about this personally because we've both been doing this. I don't know whether you can hear this music. Can you hear it now, Brittany?
No, we can't hear it.
Unfortunately. Anyway, I put on this lovely little Zen music. But because I wanted to give the references of these journals I've been reading, okay, so that we can. I've been sort of, as a scientist, I go back to facts, right? Sorry. So there's a journal of Child and Family Studies, and the article dates from April 2010, and it's on parents, mindfulness, and child management skills. So basically, they took two samples of parents who had a mindful practice and parents who didn't, and they, did experiments with them. And they found that parents which had the mindful practice really had a better quality time with the child. They had a better listen for the child. They could really be more empathetic with their children. And it was empirically validated, and it also infused into the children. And so the transition you'll get to this, Brittany, but you'll have lots of meditation. So when they transition into teenagers, there was a lot less risk of any sort of blowing up, because teenagers tend to sort of blow up, but they can get contained. And I found that the difference between I'm meditating a lot more, or have a lot more practice now than when the others were teenagers, or just at that transitional period. And it was such a hell time in my life. I don't know whether you can imagine 3 teenagers in the house, the marriage going to shit. It was lovely. I can see that now I have much more control of my mind, my thoughts, and I'm in a much better place. So that with my last little one, she's now 13, so she's transitioned, but just at the beginning of the teenagers. I can get her, she will do this, for God's sakes, as teenagers do, but I can try and get her to be mindful about it. So I'll tell her to, I'll let her storm out, but I'll let her come back in, try and talk to her, and I'll make sure that my pose, when I'm speaking, I'll sit down, shoulders back, very relaxed. I won't like, why were you screaming? You can't go out, and don't raise your eyebrows at me, and these things which we were doing, I was doing before. I can really sort of channel in all the love and everything and come from a compassionate side, so that even she, in her teenage rebellion, she just sometimes she'll just smile and say, yeah, okay, yeah, right, and she can calm down and deal with the situation at a totally different angle. So I'm really hoping for her it'll do her the world of good. Obviously, I've got older teenage kids as well. Some are within my immediate sphere, so I can try and, like last year Hector was passing his exams, and I would say meditate. He did meditate, and it really helped him in certain aspects. Obviously now he's got his exam, it's a lot difficult to get him to meditate, but I still tell him, if you've got a problem, sit down and meditate, and the answer will come to you, because you've cleared your mind, purely and simply. So I'm rambling on, but I want to just get this off my and they did another test in the same journal. So this journal, I can put all the references in the chat, and this is mindfulness training for parents who have children with ADHD, okay, which is in 2010 was they had a lot less studies done about that than they do now, and studies showed that parents who were meditating were much more, again, empathetic and mindful towards the child. So the child felt a lot more understood and a lot safer, I guess. And he would also, maybe sit and meditate with parents, or just, if they like you know, this music is going on in my ears. It's a real shame you can't hear it. But oh, maybe if I take my earbuds out. But then we got the traffic. Can you hear it now? I can't hear you. No.
Oh, sorry, I was muted.
Oh, I thought that's it. We've lost.
No, what was happening is we could hear the music, but it drowned out your voice just a little bit.
Yeah, well, so yeah, with children with ADHD, and so that's sort of autistic and different brains than the normal. You know, it did prove again that they could sort of lessen the medication, have a better quality of life. Again, we're just going back to quality of life. And the third article, which I just picked out a couple to talk about, I read tons, and it was just lovely to get back into that. This is the Mindfulness Journal, a lot more recent. Can you say that? Anyway, 2016, and it's how to develop measurements and validation for mindfulness parenting. So again, they had all these parents, they had these two tested parents, some that were meditators, others that weren't, and they're trying to find you know, valuable measures, well, stuff that you can measure empirically, so that, you know, you can show you can validate that mindfulness and mindfulness parenting is really effective on the children. And the results showed that it was both interpersonal and intrapersonal. So it goes both ways. You know, it does. Again, children will from like 2, 3 to, you know, 16. So a wide range of children, a lot of parents, and you know, with my own experiences, I can't highly recommend it enough. So I really just wanted to get that out there because, you know, it's scientific. So people just, you know, believe it.
Yeah, when there's stats, people seem to listen a little bit closer.
Yeah. So over to you, Brittany, and I'll mute myself. I can't, yes.
Okay, so yeah, no, that was a really great open because it just kind of flows with everything I want to share. And I think that, like, usually on a normal day for Sit in Your Power, for Kat and I, we talk about how to improve yourself, how to improve your self-awareness, how to improve your responses, controlling your thoughts, and really becoming more self-aware. And well, today we're talking about how to teach our children how to do this and arm them for the future so that they can deal or cope with challenges in a productive manner. So challenges don't turn into 5 steps back, they actually turn into like 10 steps forward. So this is like so important, and I would even argue that this call is, and what we're talking about here is more important than anything, because this is the future of humanity, is our children, and it is so important because mindfulness is intimately connected to self-awareness. And when we're self-aware, we can manage our emotions and our behaviors, and being able to teach our children that and help them become self-aware through mindfulness. Like self-awareness and mindfulness are like basically the same definition in a way. And if we can teach our children to become self-aware, then it will help them. Like, that's one of our biggest challenges as adults, is not being self-aware and then looking back on situations and circumstances and thinking, oh man, I didn't deal with that properly, or I could have gotten that from that. We can arm our children with tools and techniques so that they can utilize every challenge and every, I guess challenge is the best word to use. They can utilize every challenge that they're faced with in life as a positive thing, instead of it dragging them down like it usually does for the majority of society these days. So anyway, I do have something I want to share that is really cool, because often, like, as a parent, and Kat will be able to relate, and I think this is really cool for us to talk about, because I'm sharing my experience with meditating and mindfulness with a toddler, and she's sharing the transition into teenage years, because teenage years are so difficult for the children. Like, that transition is so challenging. So if we can teach them, when they make that transition, they can utilize these tools. I think this is perfect. We both are coming from a place of true authority in this area because of our experience. So often, like as a parent, when you ask, well, how do I meditate with my 3-year-old or my 2-year-old? Like there's no way you can sit down a 2 or 3-year-old and have them be quiet and still and, you know, stop their thoughts at that age. But it's not actually, like, what I've learned is it's not actually about that. It's about mindfulness instead of quote unquote meditation. Meditation will come, but mindfulness is just taking that moment. And it's, they say, I've read, and I find that it also works for my son who's 3, that it's a minute per year. Which is a little bit much also, but it's challenging. We have to keep it challenging as well, right? I won't get into too much of my experience. I believe I have shared it. I'll just share a small bit of it, but it takes a lot of perseverance. So as I was saying, as a parent, we say, like, how can I possibly do that? And for me, what I was doing before I found this technique that I'm going to share with you, what I was doing is I was sitting my son down in front of me while I meditated, and I was holding on to his hands, just so that I can transfer my calm energy to him. And also it gives his hands somewhere to be. So I would hold on to his hands and I would just close my eyes and I would ask him to close his eyes, and it would just be breathing. And I would just breathe, deep breath. And so he's good now. He can, if he's freaking out and having a tantrum, I can say, okay, take a deep breath. And he often will do that now. He'll come out of his temper tantrum. It doesn't always fix it or change the tone completely, but he can take himself from that temper tantrum, wherever his mind is, and take himself into focusing on breathing. Now, if there's one thing that I've succeeded at and that I will stand tall and pat myself on the back for, is my 3-year-old can breathe on demand and focus on his breath. And that is amazing. Still to me, thank you. Still to me, I'm blown away by it. So it is possible. It just takes a lot of patience and a lot of perseverance. So when I would sit with him and his hands are in mine and he starts to wiggle around and he starts to talk and he wants to get down, I just leave it be. Okay, get down, go ahead. Mommy's gonna meditate. Go into the living room and I will be there in a minute. You know, whatever it might be, whatever the situation is, however you want to deal with it. But never, ever, ever try and make them sit there. It should never be forced. It has to be enjoyable. It has to come natural. It can't become a chore. It can't become anything negative. So if they want to move, if they want to get up and they're done, perfect. Then it's a perfect time to be done. And it's just keep on doing that day in and day out. And they pick up on it quicker than adults. They do. They learn that this really is natural. So that's what I was doing with my son when I believed meditation was the key. Now I know that it's mindfulness that's the key. So that's basically what I was doing with him. Mindfulness is just taking the mind and focusing in on something, which would be the breath. So I was doing mindfulness with him. In my head, I was doing meditation with him, or trying to teach him meditation. And they're two of the same, absolutely. But I think with the terms, sometimes we get a little bit confused with the two terms. They're the same thing. What we have learned from one of the guys, David Canty, who we have a call with every week. Now he's an expert in this area, and we do use some of his tools, Kat and I. But one thing I've learned from him is meditation isn't something that we do. Meditation is something that happens to us. So I really do, like when he said that, a light bulb went off. I'm like, okay, that makes sense, you know, because I go into the practice of meditation and then sometimes I actually experience meditation. So they're two different things. But when we're practicing mindfulness, and I think it's important to focus on that term with parents so that it's not overwhelming or it doesn't seem like it's so far out of reach. When we practice mindfulness with our children, it's doing an activity that's focusing the mind, that's practicing on bringing the mind into the moment and focusing it on an intentional thing. So anyway, I got my personal trainer's certificate here in Canada through a company called CanFit Pro, and they're the leading company in the industry for like fitness education for personal trainers and such in the industry in Canada. So I get their magazine every month because it's basically just mandatory to be subscribed to it when you keep up on your certification and your membership. So I don't always read them, I'll be honest. I don't always go through and read this magazine, which I should because it's full of great information. But I got this, and I was in my truck. I just got it out of the mail, and I just flipped through it, and the first page I opened to was this practice, which was highly ironic, and I do share that because I think that it's relevant, that it really does mean something. So anyway, it's The Wellness of Our Future is the name of the article. The studies of the statistics that I'll read to you in this article, the study was done in Ontario, Canada, at a university. But oh no, sorry, it was done by Children's Mental Health Ontario. So what they say before I get into actual practice of the article, what it's about is basically practicing mindfulness with our children. And if you go online, we can also put this information, like Kat shared an article with me by Upworthy. I found another one by Forbes and another one by Chopra. Now that's a new site to me. I wasn't familiar with it before I found it. But it was Upworthy, right, Kat, that you sent over to me. So there are all around the world, there are schools and stuff starting to practice this and putting programs in place because they're realizing how beneficial it is to our children. So this is just a program that they do in Ontario. Coming from these stats from this study that was done, I'll just read a few of them to you. It says, as many as 1 in 5 children and youth will experience some form of mental problems. Now, this is clear. I mean, you look around and you see how many children are on medication and how early they're putting children on medication. And, you know, a lot of the time we want to say medication is the problem, but our children are dealing with mental challenges. I mean, they're growing up in a time when they are consistently stimulated. They're stimulated through devices, the internet, the TV. Parents are working so much nowadays that they don't get a lot of one-on-one in the moment time with their parents. So they're stimulated so much that it's hard for them to be mindful, and this will cause overwhelm. And you know, I'm not saying that this is causing mental problems. I think that there's a lot of factors, and I am no expert on that. But yes, Kat.
Sorry, I would just like to interject here that this also has to do with a lot of stuff the food industry is putting in stuff. So it is obviously there's a lot of overwhelm, but there's something that just drove me mad, and it's that when there was the breakout of the mad cows disease in I think it was 96 or something, they had a lot of carcasses that, you know, before the gelatin industry would use, and they refused to use that. So we were told as adults, not here in France, we eat a lot of liver, kidneys, brain, you know, pig's feet and stuff. It's whatever. And they were just, everyone was banned. So this, they were burning them in England, I remember. And as this was when I started a vegetarian company, association, sorry, losing the word. I started this, and I was doing a lot of research in that, and we found out that in fact the carcasses were bought by this huge sweet making company, Haribo. I don't know whether it's German or French. And so what we were telling adults not to eat was going into these tiny little bubbas. It was just, I'd goosebumps right now. Anyway, and so then 8 years on, you know, we get all this HDAD stuff going down, and people are children are hyperactive, they can't sit still, etc. And I was just fuming because I knew in my heart of hearts that it was due to this, as far as I was concerned. And I had a friend also in England, she was saying that because the Americans keep giving us these hormones in the cow, that everyone, all the English women, if you'll pardon the expression, are having bigger breasts. And she said she didn't, you know, she couldn't understand it. Even men have breasts. And it's because the cows, even if you're vegetarian, the cows obviously pee, and it goes into the nappe phréatique, it goes into the water table. And so, you know, then it goes up into the vegetables. And England is a tiny island, and it's, you know, going this way, it's sinking in one end, coming up in the other. So it's a tiny island, and it's a great place to do a lot of research for us vegetarians at the time. So there was a lot of, you know, food stuff that people just refused. They would say, oh yeah, but you're just turning vegetarian, so, you know, you just going, you know, whatever, it's your sect. We were called a sect, you know, etc., etc. So I just, you know, it is a lot of, today I think it's a lot to do with that, but we mustn't forget the nutrition. It is so important, and they're so tiny. I mean, you know, whatever. Sorry.
No, absolutely. I think that that just, yeah, that's another topic that fires me up. We could even do a call on it, because, yeah, our stomachs are our second brains. And if we, you know, we can teach our children mindfulness, but if we're not being mindful about what we put in their mouths, it's working against us. That was a very, very, very relevant point. Thanks, Kat. Yeah, 100%. I agree. I couldn't agree more. And heads up, we will have a call on that for sure. So anyway, yes. Yeah, that's great. No, okay. So this practice, okay, so it's the stats. 1 in 5 children and youth will experience some form of mental health problems. Even more concerning is that 5 out of 6 of those children will not receive the treatment they need. A survey completed by Parents for Children's Mental Health revealed that 76% of families surveyed have no idea where to seek help. And that in alone doesn't surprise me. But if I even think deeper into that, if a parent isn't being mindful, or the parents aren't being mindful and aware, then a lot of the time they're not going to become aware of what is actually happening with their child. And so awareness is first. Before they even know that they need to seek help, they need to be aware that they need it. So those are some stats. It goes 70% of mental health problems have their onset during children and adolescence. So we're not talking about healing already diagnosed, which they have tons of studies that have already proven that children have been taken off of medications due to mindfulness practices and meditation. So that put aside, this is not talking about diagnosing, or sorry, healing already diagnosed mental illnesses or issues, but just acting in a, like a, what's the word? I took, prevention, sorry. I lost the word, but yeah, it's not, we're not talking, what they're not saying is that they're working on dealing with that or healing, but preventing. And although, just take a look online, you'll see how much they have found taking children off medication and how much it's helped kids who have already been diagnosed with issues or challenges mentally. So they have this practice that they're doing in Ontario, Canada, and they call it Peace Begins With Me, Meditation for Mental Balance. So they take the children and they sit them down, and they have the children connect their fingers, and they're going to do like a process here, but it's 6 minutes, I believe. So it's 1 minute out loud, 1 minute whisper, 2 minutes silent, 1 minute whisper, 2, 4, yeah, so 6 minutes, which I believe would be a little bit long for like a 2-3-year-old, but I have been trying it with my son, and we don't get through the 6 minutes, and it is difficult to communicate when you want them to do something silently at that age, but it doesn't mean that you can't start and just go with the flow of however your child takes it. Whatever direction they take it in, just run with it. So they have their fingers, in index finger to thumb, peace, middle finger to thumb, begins, ring finger to thumb, with, and pinky finger to thumb, me. So for 1 minute, the mantra is peace begins with me. But for 1 minute, you do it out loud. So peace begins with me. Peace begins with me. And you do that for a minute out loud. And then you do it in a whisper. Whisper, peace begins with me. And then you do it 2 minutes silently. So you do that with your fingers and silently in your head, and you request from the children in their head, silently they keep saying the mantra. And then you do it a minute for whisper and another minute out loud. Same thing, peace begins with me. And that's a 6-minute thing. So like I said, for a 2 or 3-year-old, it might be a little much. You could take it down to 1 minute each. 1 minute out loud, 1 minute silent, 1 minute in your head, 1 minute whisper, 1 minute out loud. So like I said, this is like a total guideline. When I read this, I was super excited because it makes sense to engage a child while having them be mindful is brilliance to me. And this is a really, really beautiful way of doing it. So it's interactive. So if you have more than one child, like if you're doing it in a class or you're doing it with your own children, then everyone's saying it out loud together. And another thing also that I find with my son, who's 3, he's going to be 4 in February, what I find with him is that when I kind of make it a game, so I have like a big grin on my face and I do it with my fingers and I'm watching him and I'm good job, and we're doing it and it's fun and it's exciting, he's engaged longer. I have not succeeded to do this 6 minutes with him. We've done it probably a dozen times with our fingers out loud, which is 100% perfect. That's exactly how it should be with him. We always leave happy. It's a happy thing. We leave it behind. We carry on with our day. But yeah, I think that 6 minutes out of the day where you sit down with your child and you focus on doing this exercise, the difference is profound. I know it will be. I know in my heart I would put everything on the line to say that you will see a difference by doing this exercise every day. And I also believe in breath. It's worked with my 3-year-old, and just taking him through, take a deep breath, and you just do it with him, and they pick it up quickly. And yeah, so
I have a question. Sorry, Brittany.
No, go ahead.
Do you have a little bit of music, or is it in silence? How's that?
You know what? It doesn't say.
Do you think you could photocopy the article and pop it on the page?
Take a picture of it?
And pop it on the page, on the Facebook page.
Absolutely. I wonder even if they have a website where they...
Well, we'll look at that in a minute.
Figure it out.
A lot of notes about this because it sounds very brilliant. And
here's the...
Another question I have. So the article, this is being done actually at the mental health institution. Is that it? What did
Mental health, Children's Mental Health Ontario. So CMHO is the acronym.
So, yeah, so they're taking mental health children to do this?
Children's Mental Health Ontario. Hold on 1 second.
It's really funny because that picture behind you of Dante looks so much like Felix. It's scary.
Oh, really?
Especially as for me, it's way, way back. So yeah, well, those are questions we can answer, but that's a great find. Yeah.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's brilliant. To me, it's like...
What I used to do as well is I'm a great bath lover. I just love to sit in the bath with either my algae swimming or my rose petals or flower petals or whatever I happen to have. And since I've been in Bordeaux, I haven't had a bath tub. Obviously, I've had a bath here and there, but I haven't had a bath. We have a shower, but and I used to always sit with lots of essential oils as well. And the kids never had soap on them till they're about 6, 7, because I believe that the essential oils would wash them, and then after that I would with a massage oil I would and this special music and this special way of massaging them I would do this also. That was you know, and all this is coming back to me because I see that photo behind and I'm thinking, oh God, and it's that like that blue little pajama Felix used to have, you know, and I'll put it in and it's like, oh my God, you know. It's yeah, so update them please, because it's just
I do need to update them. I keep telling myself that too, like I need to update these pictures.
It's really, really, to me, it's like, wow, really. And we're talking about all this mindfulness stuff, and I'm always trying to do that, but I haven't been meditating and stuff. And we have, well, obviously, Felix was Asperger's, and I didn't know. I knew he was very brilliant. He's a genius and very different, but I didn't, you know, didn't know about meditation at that particular point. And yeah, but there you go. So I think awareness to the parents, I think, would be a place where we could really have a powerful impact, you know,
Yeah.
because don't believe you can't do it, that's for sure. I mean, you can sit, you know, 6 minutes yourself doing this. This seems to me like, oh, you see, I do it backwards and forwards. Can we do that? I don't know. That's another thing I'd like, you know, because when you said it, I do it this way, you know. And I was trying to translate it as well to see if I could do it with kids in the school and stuff. So, because we have a quite, you know, open school, they're very much into this. So it's very, very interesting. Yeah, highly interesting. So lots of references we'll be putting up in the group and the Facebook page and the YouTube links and stuff. So yeah, God, my mind is well, it's going from, you know, 1995 to back now. It's like, wow. It's really, really, and the difference it might have made for them, you know. But hey, I can't think about that. I just have to give them what I can now, you know.
Yes,
So you can too, as a parent. You can, you know, the main thing you can do is start now, right? Because once you have the information and you don't do anything about it, that's very, very, well, that's when you can start, you know, whatever. We won't blame and shame, but, you know, I think awareness, as you were saying, Brittany, is so, so important. This is really exciting, this new thing. It's very exciting.
It is very exciting.
It is.
I think it makes things very realistic for parents.
Yeah.
And just makes it very realistic.
So, and do you sit Dante down? But Dante was used to sitting down before, so, you know, maybe.
Yeah, I sit him down cross-legged. I ask him to sit like I do. Yeah. And he does.
Yeah, because you've got him used to that.
It's never been a negative thing. I've never forced it on him or anything like that. So still now, like, I'm like, hey, we're going to do something. And we sit down, like, and we cross-leg and we face each other. And he's already excited to see what's going to happen. He doesn't, you know, he's already engaged. So once he sees what we're doing, he then decides when he's done, well, okay, this is no fun anymore. And he takes off, or he wants to go, or he gets, you know, a little bit impatient. But that comes down to awareness as well. When he starts getting silly, and when I say starts getting silly, he starts like being kind of rough and, you know, like playing around, and, like, you know, I just say, okay, we're all done, good job, high five, and we move on. And instead of letting his mind wander in that spot, I just say, okay, it's time to move on. And it works. Like it really, really works. And I have a very headstrong, very like, I mean, all kids are, but he's not quiet. He's not shy. He very rarely is he shy or anything. He's very outspoken and active, and it works with him. You know, and I don't know. I can't even say enough about it. I just wish I could take every child in the world and, like, let's just do this, you know?
Well, intention is set. Maybe we can do workshops. Maybe we can put pages out. Let's move things along. Because you're a trained coach or whatever it is.
We can do virtual programs. Yeah. Yes.
So we'll discuss this at you know, off air. Possibly.
Yeah. Okay. So
it might be in the pipelines.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
or
thank you for
reach out and, you know, question us. Brittany is a great expert here. Well, you are. You don't. You know, it is quite amazing getting a 3-year-old to sit down and, you know, meditate and do mindful stuff.
Still blows my mind. Still blows my mind.
But they are elastic, and you know, as long as you keep it fun, like you're doing, it's perfect. It's brilliant. Absolutely.
Yeah. I would definitely stress it cannot be forced.
No.
It can't be forced. It can't be a chore. It can't be. But it's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing. I'll tell you, when your 3-year-old is throwing a temper tantrum, you know, and they're sweating and they're like completely out of it. You know, when a dog is so hyper, you're not just going to tell the dog to sit. It doesn't work. You know, when they're in a 10, you're not bring them down to a 1. And that's like kids, toddlers, you know, they get so wrapped up in, well, they want to wear their shoes today and there's snow, so they have to wear their boots, and they get so upset, and that just throws their world. It tears them apart. And when you can bring them back down in a matter of seconds with breath, it really says a lot. It does. Because even as adults, most adults that's a challenge. Most adults are not capable of bringing themselves out of that emotional wreck or roller coaster down within seconds or minutes into a mindful, rational place.
No. So
for a 3-year-old, it's probably the best thing I've ever done, I must say. Yeah.
So we shall wrap up with that. I think we'll finish there.
Okay.
The best thing you've done. I don't think we can say anything more on that. Let's just leave that. Thank you very much. See you next
week. And everybody take care. We will see you again next week.